In 1943, a theological professor at Union Theological Seminary was invited to preach at a small village church in Massachusetts where he and his family spent the summer. And on that occasion, for that service, Reinhold Niebuhr wrote a prayer. And that prayer over the years has become known as the Serenity Prayer. He prayed that prayer. Later on, a friend heard about the prayer, read the prayer, and asked him if he could have it published with a series of prayers that were made available for soldiers fighting in World War II, and Reinhold Niebuhr consented. It wasn't long after that until Alcoholics Anonymous heard about the prayer, read the prayer, and asked Niebuhr if they too could use the prayer. And it became, as you so well know, the foundational prayer of the recovery program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Hallmark Cards learned about the prayer. They too asked Reinhold Niebuhr if they could use that prayer and publish that prayer, disseminate that prayer, which they've done. Now, the prayer that you are most familiar with is not totally the prayer that Reinhold Niebuhr prayed. The prayers that comes to us has primarily come through Hallmark or through Alcoholics Anonymous. Let me share with you the original prayer, which is somewhat different than what you know. God, give us grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. Today I begin a 3-part series on this notable prayer. I'll finish the sermon on September the 15th and September the 22nd. Today, God, give us grace to accept with serenity. God, give us grace to accept with serenity. God, give us grace. Simply put, we are praying that God will come into our lives with His gracious activity and make a difference amidst the challenges that we face. God, come into my life, bring me your gracious divine Spirit that it might help me with what I face. Now you might wonder why Niebuhr didn't pray, God give me strength, or God give me power. Why use the word grace? God give me grace. God give me grace. And the reason for that is that we don't deserve God's gracious activity. We don't deserve God's help. There's not a one in this sanctuary, preachers included, who can say that we deserve God's gracious activity in our lives, that we deserve God's help. It is always a gift of grace. It is what God chooses to give us because He loves us. Most of you know that the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous was Bill Wilson. And Bill Wilson, as you probably know, was an alcoholic, a serious alcoholic. He began to drink during World War II when he was serving overseas. And like many soldiers, sadly, that drinking became a real problem. He returned to the United States, began to drink more, and over time again became an alcoholic. It in effect destroyed his life. He lost his family, he lost his home, his life was in a shambles. And he writes in his autobiography, the big book, about the occasion when God's touch of grace changed his life. It happened when a friend of his, a drinking buddy friend of his, asked to come visit him. And Bill Wilson writes that he couldn't wait for the friend to come over. He was down, feeling down at that particular time in his life, and he couldn't wait for the drinking buddy to come over so they could hash out just life and have a lot of drinks. And here's what Bill Wilson writes about that visit. When he arrived, I pushed a drink across the table. He refused it. Disappointed but curious, I wondered what had gotten into the fellow. He wasn't himself. Come, what's this all about? I queried. He looked straight at me. Simply but smilingly, he said, I've got religion. My friend sat before me and he made the point-blank declaration that God had done for him what he could not do for himself. His human will had failed. Doctors had pronounced him incurable. Society was about to lock him up. Like myself, he had admitted complete defeat. Then he had, in effect, been raised from the dead, suddenly taken from the scrap heap to a level of life better than the best he had ever known. None of us deserve God's gracious activity. But because He loves us, He is ever willing to come to us and bring us His grace as we open ourselves to that grace. God, give me your gracious presence. Most of you know that one of the noted atheists in our day and time is Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins wrote in 2006 a book titled The God Delusion. And in that book, Richard Dawkins said this: "We cannot, of course, disprove God, just as we can't disprove Thor, fairies, leprechauns, and the flying spaghetti monster. But like those other fantasies that we can't disprove, we can say that God is very, very improbable." Now, you can't prove God. You cannot prove that God exists. I cannot prove that God exists. Richard Dawkins is right there. But I would say to Richard Dawkins that over 40 years of ministry, I have witnessed God. I may not can prove God, but I have witnessed God. I have witnessed God's gracious activity in countless lives doing what no one else could do or anything else could do, and so have you, right? Everyone in this sanctuary knows those moments that can only be described as God moments. Moments that simply make no sense any other way than by God's gracious gift of grace. God, give me that gift of grace. To accept. God, give me grace to accept. I read a couple of weeks ago an article titled, "8-Year-Old Becomes Governor for a Day." It was a story about Jania Harrison, a third grader, who had responded to the Maryland governor's invitation to write an essay about public service, and the winner of that essay, chosen by him, would be declared governor for a day. And so Jania Harrison, on July the 3rd, just a few weeks ago, several weeks ago, was declared governor for a day. What if you could be God for a day? What if you could be God for a day? Even though we've just declared that we have witnessed the wondrous grace of God in life and in people's lives, there's not a one of us who wouldn't do it differently. If you were God for a day, you would do things differently than God seems to do them. And if I were God for a day, I would do things differently than God seems to do them. Here's my list. There will be no 50th anniversary of the March on Washington because we would stamp out racism and inequality with one stroke of divine decision. There would be no 8th anniversary of Katrina because we would declare that there would never again be devastating, life-taking storms on humanity. There will be no political and moral soul-searching on what is going on in Syria with Assad and the likelihood of chemical weapons, because we would declare that no Assads can ever come to power. There will be no tugs on our hearts at the images of starving children across this globe, because we would declare with a stroke of divine decision that poverty is over, that everyone will have a good living and a productive living. There will be no personal and medical struggles with loved ones facing the suffering of a terminal illness, because we would declare in that divine decision that only the aged die, and they always die comfortably and naturally. There will be no weeping mother trying to explain to her 3 children why their father, who was courageously helping others fight a huge wildfire in Arizona as a member of an elite hotshot team, died suddenly, because we would never let people of courage and goodwill die like that. If you could be God for a day, if I could be God for a day, we would do things differently. But you're not God. And I'm not God. And God does things His way. And when I pray and you pray, God, give me grace to accept, what we're praying is, God, give me strength of will and heart. Give me confidence to believe that your ways are the right ways, that your design for humanity and history is the right design, that when all the dust settles of this life and of history itself, we can truly say, when done God's way, was the right way. God, give me the ability to accept with confidence that your ways, your design, your will is right and good for us all. God, give us grace to accept with serenity. With serenity. Jesus said to His disciples in the 14th chapter of the Gospel of John, recorded in the 27th verse, these notable words, "My peace I leave with you. I do not give you the peace of the world. I give you the peace of God. My peace I leave with you." There is a tranquility. There is a serenity. There is a peace that makes no logical sense whatsoever. There's a serenity amidst the circumstances that a person who does not have faith simply cannot comprehend. There is a strength amidst the challenges of life, a serenity of soul and spirit that can only be a gift from God and makes, again, no logical, rational sense whatsoever. How one could have that kind of faith and trust and serenity when the storms of life toss you around. That kind of serenity is the serenity Paul talks about when he says we're hard pressed on every side, but we don't need to be crushed. We can be perplexed by life's circumstances, but we need not be in despair. We may feel persecuted, but we need to know we're not abandoned. We may feel struck down, but we need to understand we need not be destroyed. Therefore, we do not lose heart. God, give me grace to accept with a peace that passeth all understanding whatever it is life brings to me and to the world. God, give me grace. Help me by your divine, gracious presence stand tall, whether I deserve it or not. God, help me accept that your way is the best way, whether I comprehend it or not. And God, give me a peace, a serenity that can only come from you amidst the storms of life. God, give us grace to accept with serenity. Thanks be to God. Amen.